Welcome to today's class. The objective of this class is threefolds. Firstly, recently there were two new additions to the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So, taking that as an occasion, what we'll do is we'll understand the concept of UNESCO World Heritage Site. What is heritage? What is listing process? Criteria? इंडिया के कितने हेरिटेज साइट्स है, क्या है, वो सारा एनालिटिकल एस्पेक्ट विच विल हेल्प यू टू सॉल्व मेंस वाले आंसर्स. In the second half, we'll move to each site one by one. Out of 40 sites, 7 sites are natural heritages, which we will not see here. One site is a combined Kanchenjunga, which again we will not see much. चाहे तो introduce कर देंगे. All remaining sites are of our interest. Even amongst those, a few of them are in modern times, and UPSC has not asked a question from modern heritage recently. Like in last 10-15 years, they have not asked a single question. So we'll talk about them, but very briefly. So out of those 32 sites, around 6 or 7 sites come in modern times, and remaining of them will deal one by one in detail. That will be useful for prelims. But before that, we'll go to the mains wala aspect. Some of the prelims वाली चीज़ें भी वहाँ पे रहेंगी, for example some conventions, some factual things, but mostly it will be analytical. So first some time mains and then prelims. So we know this is to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Article 51AF, that is our fundamental duty, right? It is fundamental duty. You come across heritage and history and preservation, conservation thing twice in our constitution. First in fundamental duty and then in DPSP as well, right? ऐसे मत करो यार. So anyway, so we need to understand what is a heritage in the context of composite culture or even without that. And to understand, and after understanding what is a heritage, the concept is very complex and rich. So why to value it, and then how to preserve it, and before that how to preserve it, we need to understand what are the threats to the heritage against which we have to preserve them. So ये conceptual thought आपके मन में रखना throughout the process. Let us move on. Let us quickly walk through a few mains questions that have been asked in recent past after the change in syllabus in 2013 in GS1. Some of which are directly on this topic, some of which are indirectly on this topic. Every year around 2 to 3 questions come from art and culture, ancient medieval combined, 2 10 markers, 1 or 2 15 markers. So 3 तो होते ही है, कभी कभी 4 भी हो जाते हैं. So of these 7 years, 13, 14, 15, 18, 8 years. So you have around 24-25 questions in that part, of which these many questions are directly or indirectly linked to UNESCO World Heritage Sites, even in mains. So I will walk you through them one by one and then we'll start the lecture. Is that fine? थोड़ा पोल भी कर लेते हैं. Hello? Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Okay. ठीक है. So the first question was, safeguarding the Indian art heritage is the need of the moment. What does it mean? You need to understand what is the meaning of Indian art heritage. They are specifically using the word art heritage and not only heritage. Heritage can be natural as well. Heritage can be intangible as well. So they wanted to reduce the scope of the question to minimize the chances of elaborating it in random directions. So art heritage, and safeguarding it against what? So the problems that heritage is facing, extinction, destruction, whatever. And one more thing, interpretation. Indian philosophy and tradition played a significant role in conceiving and shaping the monuments and their art in India. So behind the monuments and the art, the thought behind it, what was the thought? So how the monuments and heritage come into being, physically first, and then how it affects our thoughts, so both levels. The ancient civilization in Indian subcontinent differed from those in Egypt, Mesopotamia and Greece. ये क्वेश्चन तो आपको पता हो कहाँ से उठाया है. सारे जहाँ से अच्छा का सेकंड स्टांजा. यूनान मिस्र रोमा सब मिट गए जहाँ से, अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशा हमारा, सारे जहाँ से अच्छा हिंदू से था हमारा. यूनान मिस्र रोमा, रोमा को ग्रीस कर दिया, सब मिट गए जहाँ से. बट traditions and culture have been preserved without a breakdown to the present day in India. अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशा हमारा, क्वेश्चन दे दिया। तो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज हेरिटेज, हाउ इट इज कंजर्व्ड, प्रिजर्व। क्वेश्चन थोड़ा अलग है, नॉट इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट, आई अग्री, बट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ हेरिटेज। The then connected to specific WHS, World Heritage Sites. You have these many questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 questions. Pala period is the most significant phase in the history of Buddhism. Again, Nalanda and role of Nalanda in Buddhism. Nalanda is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Rock cut architecture represents one of the most important sources of knowledge in early Bhimbetka World Heritage Site. If you analyze the Bhimbetka site itself, you will be able to understand this question very easily. Early Buddhist stupa art, while depicting folk motifs and narratives, successfully expounds Buddhist ideals. Again, it is not about Sanchi specifically, but if you have studied Sanchi in detail, answering this question is very easy. You will just use other examples to substantiate your answer. Okay. So then Mesolithic art cut architecture, rock cut architecture in India, not only reflects the cultural life of the times, but also the aesthetic sense comparable to the modern painting. Again, the spelling mistake is there, but anyway. Point is, you have again Bhimbetka and rock paintings. For rock cut architecture, not only Bhimbetka, actually it is about, Ellora, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Ajanta and Elephanta. So we have 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites for rock cut. And here you have Bhimbetka. To what extent has the urban planning and culture of the Indus Valley civilization, again we have this year Dholavira, very simple question. Taxila University was one of the oldest, and compare Taxila with Nalanda. Again, Nalanda came back. And Chola architecture represents. So, living Chola temples, we have 3 of them as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So, many questions, almost every another year or every other year, you have one question at least coming directly or indirectly from UNESCO World Heritage Sites. ऐसे मैंने मेरी भूमिका बांध दी है. I have established the importance of the topic. Let us move on to the topic now. Okay. So what is heritage? ये बताएगा सर. What do you mean by heritage?
What is important to us in monument, our culture also.
Something significant,
Preserve it.
which can be monument or culture. So tangible as well as intangible, both, right? See, heritage is something you inherit that comes from your past. So it is a possession. You possess it, either physically as some building, फैमिली में आपके कोई कॉइन्स होंगे, कुछ गहने होंगे, दैट इज फैमिली हेरिटेज. कपड़े होंगे, दादी की साड़ी थी, घर की हवेली है पुश्तैनी, इट कैन बी एनीथिंग. Heritage is something you possess that has come to you from generation to generation. It can be natural or cultural, both. So in our context, for our requirement, we are focusing only on cultural heritage and not on natural heritage. वो संतोष सर पढ़ाएंगे. And then tangible as well as intangible. Now this tangible intangible is a very crucial issue. The thing is, they are not so inseparable. I cannot envision Taj Mahal without understanding the craft and skill of making Taj Mahal. And the craft of making Taj Mahal is intangible art. And Taj Mahal is nothing but tangible version of that art. So intangible is not only music or dance or drama, something that fleetingly goes on. No. Tangible and intangible are intertwined. So if you only try to conserve or celebrate the tangible aspect of art or monument, that is incomplete. Okay. Naughty issues. There are many on this slide which we inherit, correct? I should have mobile in my hand. Comments कभी कभी मैं देख नहीं. I'll get used to it in some time. So the thing is, we have had a long civilization. यूनान, मिस्र, रोमा सब मिट गए जहाँ से. अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशा हमारा. So it is a footprints of long march from the savagery, if we can call the initial phase of human being as savage, then savagery to the civilization is a very modernist thought. So naughty issues, what survives? There can be or there could have been many other things which are more important, but we lost them. Some languages are gone. The entire cultural heritage and repository of knowledge in that language is gone. It has not survived. And who decides what survives? there has to be some kind of patronage behind it. Some cities are gone forever, some cities are existing. So patronage network, the importance that society gives that thing and the patronage it receives from the elite is one important aspect of the survival of heritage. So it is a selection bias. Whatever survives, some of that can be seen as heritage, some of them is discarded, and many things have not survived, which could have been of equal importance. Second thing is who selects. Who selects मतलब who will decide कि किसका heritage. I'll give an example. यहाँ पे I have taken 3 specific examples in the context of colonial phase of India. One phase is Tipu Sultan. और टीपू सुल्तान की जो फाइट अगेंस्ट कॉलोनियल ब्रिटिश कंपनी जो थी, some people will call him as a nationalist who was trying to save freedom of India, and some will say he was bigot. No, actions उसी आदमी के हैं, but there is a debate and dispute. So whose heritage is this? You go to Bhima Koregaon. Bhima Koregaon column is a column erected by British against Marathas. In the end, जब वो बैटल हुआ था, and then Mahar regiment थी, and Mahar regiment fought on the side of British against Marathas. So when we read Anglo-Maratha wars, तो उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हम Mahar regiment का अगर देखेंगे contribution, so that for them it is a very honorable thing, क्योंकि they see Peshwai as not Marathas but Brahmins oppressing Dalits, and being a part of a regiment of British is like liberation for them. तो ये regiment, some people will say ब्रिटिश आए एंड हमारा स्वतंत्रता खत्म हो गई, वी लॉस्ट आवर इंडिपेंडेंस बिकॉज वी गॉट कॉलोनाइज्ड. इट्स अ मॉन्यूमेंट ऑफ शेम फॉर सम पीपल एंड सम मॉन्यूमेंट लिबरेशन. किसका हेरिटेज? हेरिटेज कैन मीन डिफरेंट थिंग्स. टेक दिस मद्रास रेजिमेंट का लोगो. वी हैव एन एलिफेंट ओवर हियर. दिस एलिफेंट इज नथिंग बट एन एलिफेंट conquered by British from Marathas in 1802 in the Second Anglo-Maratha War. In the Battle of Asai. In the Battle of Asai, Madras regiment was fighting on British behalf against Marathas. And it was a very difficult battle, and British won somehow, and they got the elephant. And the elephant was taken as march of celebration. We have overcome such a huge obstacle. And till today, if you go to Madras regiment, हेडक्वार्टर जाओ, हर आदमी की सीने पे देखो जहाँ पे ये हाथी होता है. अब ये हाथी में को मद्रास रेजिमेंट की शान है कि मराठों का इंडिया का स्वतंत्रता का डिफीट है. I can't say both of them are true. So whose heritage? What does it mean? So these are very difficult and knotty issues. So if you have that perspective, आपका मेंस का आंसर अपने आप एनरिच हो जाएगा. ठीक है. So whose heritage it is and who defines that? So sometimes politics can come and reinterpret the heritage. I can give you many more examples. Take for example, अफगानिस्तान कैसे चल रहा है. Besides Afghanistan, we have Balochistan. In Balochistan, there are many tribes. One tribe was Bukti tribe. It is still there. And the leader of Bukti tribe at one point of time was Akbar Bukti. He was like quasi king of that tribe, chief tha. Akbar Bukti once said, I am paraphrasing it for you, that I am a Baloch for 5,000 years. I am a Muslim for 1,500 years. And I am a Pakistani for 50 years. Who am I? The point is, the heritage is so difficult and knotty because it is connected to identity. And what kind of identity you derive from it defines your today's cultural personality. ठीक है. So वो बुक्ति, वो ट्राइबल बलोच है कि मुसलमान पहले है कि पाकिस्तानी पहले है. No, these identities may not in conflict with each other all the time. Sometimes they may be in conflict, sometimes they may not be. That's a different issue. But situation, politics, requirement will define which identity, which heritage will be given primacy at what point of time. ठीक है. कुतुब मीनार सबसे फेमस एग्जाम्पल है. राइट विंग विल से कुतुब मीनार, इवन दो इट इज अ यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट, कुतुब मीनार मार्क ऑफ शेम. इट शोज कि भाई इस्लामिक Turkic people came to India, invaded India, and they established their empire for the first time. And the symbol of that thing is हम आए नहीं जाएंगे, कुतुब मीनार बनाया. And for others, it's the beginning of Indo-Islamic architecture. यहाँ से गंगा जमुनी तहजीब शुरू होती है. It can be, it is both. Neither side is wrong as such. So heritage requires something called as interpretation. A thinker called Benjamin something. Do I have his name over here? Walter Benjamin. Yeah, Walter Benjamin. You don't need to write his name. I'm just talking about him. He talks of the concept of aura. A-U-R-A. Aura. What does he mean? He means, let us say we have the painting of Ajanta, paste paintings. Now, in the mechanical age of reproduction, I can take photos and produce them. Will the photos, which are exact facsimile or the same paintings, will have the same heritage value? No. Then what defines the heritage value? What is authentic? That is one thing. And secondly, then you have to be able to explain the time and space context to interpret the heritage. That enveloping thing of time and space which gives interpretation to the heritage is called as the aura of the heritage. हड़प्पा मैं खोद रहा हूँ, I find some artifact there, I take it away and put into museum. And if I as a visitor go to museum, will I be impressed? भाई कुछ भी हो सकता था, कहीं भी हो सकता था. So I need to interpret that artifact for the visitor. इसका time space context क्या है? And that is a mark of task of historian. Art historians, other historians, archaeologists, everybody. And the aura is very important. That envelope that surrounds the object. Say Qutub Minar can be both. What is the envelope that you want to use? It is called aura. And devoid of aura, the monument itself has no much meaning. So when I say ki what survives, maybe the physical object survives, the story changes. It can happen with a change in society. At one point of time, you see this was a good thing, then you see this was a bad thing. The interpretation changes of the same things. Who selects? Who will decide which monument to be interpreted? Then whose heritage? So all these things are things of interpretation. The problems of colonial history, and even before that, I can give you another example. Gupta era in ancient India is the idea कि India का highest कब था? सोने की चिड़िया. In VC Gupta era. कालिदास भी है, golden coins भी है, science and technology भी है, India unified भी है. So everything that you want as a golden age is present in the Gupta era. The Gupta era helped a lot in the creation of utopia of what free India can be during national movement. But there is a historian who said, instead of Guptas creating nationalism, it was modernism who created Guptas. Because national movement required some kind of idols and they looked for in the past and they happened to choose Gupta. They could have equally chosen Kushana. So ये सब चीजें बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स होती है. Who selects, who interprets, who defines. So I just wanted to establish that this is, we'll see the roster of facts as well, don't worry, which will be directly used for exam, but I just wanted to go through this one slide to tell you the complexity of the issue. Is that fine? अरे सिंपल बात ना, अकबर औरंगजेब. हाँ? Yes, Akbar Aurangzeb. If you talk about Indian historians, they will say Akbar is great, Aurangzeb was not so great. If you read history books written in Pakistan, for them Aurangzeb is great, Akbar is like kafir. ठीक है? National boundaries change the history. Anyway, let us move on. So, apart from the problems of selection, interpretation, analysis, we have physical threats also to the heritage monuments. So I listed the issues like geographic variety, climatic factor. Some monument is in some part, बारिश बहुत होती है, बाढ़ आ जाती है, they can get washed away, destroyed, भूचाल आता है. Like Bhuj, when Bhuj में भूकंप हुआ था, the quake that happened in Bhuj, I think around 20 years ago, 19-20 years ago. So at that time, the sites there faced a lot of problem. Harappan sites. And differences in building material. Some heritage are rock cut, some are structural, some are brick, some are timber. Different climate, different context, different material. It creates a huge challenge on the part of the protecting agency. It may be, let us say, Archaeological Survey of India, ASI. They need to have expertise in all these materials. If I want to go and conserve Ajanta, so I need to know rock cut, rock structure, mineralogy, जियोलॉजी, केमिस्ट्री, बायोलॉजी, इंसेक्ट्स वहाँ पे खा रहे हैं, वो सब दिक्कत हो रही है कलर को. सो इट इज़ नॉट ईजी थिंग. Then you have rapid industrialization, anthropogenic factors, from intended to unintended everything. Tourism dilemma. You want tourism because you want to increase the awareness of this heritage. You want this heritage to be accessible to everybody so that they feel the same identity, same belongingness. At the same time, the more people go there, problems increase. Right? It's a dilemma, tourism dilemma. When you have religious fundamentalism and rebels, like people go and destroy. It can be any country. I won't take names. Okay. Theft and smuggling and neglect. Utter neglect can be there. Like you don't care about it. It is just lying. In Delhi, you will find many monuments like this. Not all monuments are fortunate enough to take or receive the cognizance of the state. Theft and smuggling, we know चोला मूर्तिज गोइंग आउट कमिंग इन, वो हम अखबार में हर बार पढ़ते रहते हैं. द हिंदू छापता है चेन्नई से. State's vulnerability to the matters of religion, everything. So you have these factors, all of which are posing threat to the existence of our monuments. It's a very simple thing. I won't go into details. Next. Now these threats are not identified today, they have been identified forever. And you see, India has had multiple laws since the beginning in the colonial times. For us, only 3 laws are important. This 1904 law. It is because who was the Governor General of India in 1904? Lord Curzon. And Lord Curzon was a very good person in a sense that he introduced a lot of reforms and brought many changes. What is the difference between heritage and culture? I'll talk about it in a moment. Many changes in the archaeological field, preservation angle say, he brought many good things. He brought many monuments to the fore. So he has had some good contribution. So that is one thing. Generally MCQ happens and comes in mains or prelims ki contribution of Curzon, positive, negative likho. Which of the following reforms was brought by Curzon or not brought by Curzon. Need to know ki one act for heritage conservation was brought by Curzon. That is one thing. And then we have 2 different acts in the post-independence time that are important. One is the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act, which governs largely our World Heritage Sites and other sites, national list, state list, under ASI or State Archaeological Survey or other departments and structures. And then we have Antiquities and Art Treasures Act. It is about portable art and antiquities. It is not about structures. So today we are concerned with 1958 Act. It has also its own limitations. The time has changed a lot. Anyway, I'll get back to this question. What is the difference between heritage and culture? See, culture is about a lot of other things apart from heritage. Heritage may you need to have idea or a monument which provides you identity and continuity. Culture can be present times, past times. Both of them are intertwined. Culture can be linguistic, culture can be food culture, cuisine, anything can be there. I am not going into anthropological definitions and I am not going into sociological definitions. Okay? And not even archaeological definition. In archaeology, you have archaeological culture. It means the type site. कोई साइट होती है, उस साइट में जो मटेरियल रिमेन्स मिले हैं, इट इज कॉल्ड कल्चर. ठीक है, वो मटेरियल कल्चर ऑफ दैट साइट. सो कल्चर कैन बी मेनी डिफरेंट थिंग्स, बट कल्चर इज लार्जली द आइडिया एंड सोशल नॉर्म्स एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स. ठीक है. वी हैव इंटेंजिबल हेरिटेज. यूनेस्को इंटेंजिबल हेरिटेज लिस्ट सुना है ना. टेंजिबल इज समथिंग फिजिकल. Intangible is something impersonated, embodied in human skill or craft or idea. For example, ahimsa. I'll give 2 examples, ahimsa and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Our dearest Prime Minister nowadays say that India has a culture of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I'll tell you 2 naughty things. Did India always welcome foreigners? You go into our past. Al-Biruni came to India 1000 years ago, talked about how insular Indians were, not accepting what is happening around, not even talking about or aware of happening in the dunya. Itni aage ja rahi hai, they didn't know. So was it Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? No. But today we are selecting that part to be our culture or heritage rather, which is not wrong. But heritage requires interpretation. It is an idea. It is not tangible. And if you even read the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam completely, the shlok that comes from Mahapurana, it says that there are 2 types of people. Some people say, I think I told that shlok once, no? Ganana Labuchita Sam Udar Chiritanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There are two types of people in the world. Some people are small-minded and some are broad-minded. That is the shlok. And broad-minded is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So the shlok is also not saying that it is India's heritage. The shlok is saying in the world there are two types of people. Some are narrow-minded, some are broad-minded. That's all. We take the last one, broad-minded. That is our heritage. Non-violence. महात्मा गांधी के एरा में non-violence नाम का कल्चर क्रिएट किया गया. It is India's heritage. It was selectively established, not incorrectly, but selectively, starting from Buddha or even go to before that, Upanishad, etc. How non-violence has been creed of Indian culture. But if you look at the historical facts, we have had multiple wars all the time. हम थोड़ी अहिंसा के पुजारी रहे हमेशा, नहीं रहे, कोई भी नहीं रहता दुनिया में. But you want to interpret non-violence, which has been a dominant thread in Indian history, as the important thread. ठीक है? So heritage can be idea as well, apart from. So non-violence, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam are our heritage today. ठीक है? Anyway, culture can be of present and past time. Heritage has to come from past. Yes, correct. So let us move on to next slide. So we have been taking a lot of efforts to safeguard our heritage as well. Efforts can be in the form of laws, institutions, as well as other efforts, actions. So I'll just summarize a few things. You have acts. We have seen this act as well. And apart from these two acts, we have multiple state level acts. Sometimes even monument level acts. For example, Bodh Gaya is managed by a specific committee. It is not in the hands of Archaeological Survey of India. No. Specific committee is constituted there historically. But managed Bodh Gaya, fine. We have some Hampi related act to manage Hampi. So all these regional acts are also there. And many a times some heritage happens to fall not in the domain of ASI, but in the domain of forest department, like forts in the hills. Right? So we have other forest laws applicable there as well, which have components of heritage. But anyway, we have various national laws and state laws. That is the bottom line. And we have various institutions. I won't go into the all institutions one by one. That is not required. But we have, and this is not the exhaustive list as well. There can be a few more. But we have many institutions there. And then we have civil society initiatives. So state की monopoly नहीं है हमेशा conserve and preserve करना. If you see, we have an Article 49. I'll read it for you. It shall be the obligation of the state to protect every monument or place or object of artistic or historic interest to be of national importance from spoliation, disfigurement, destructions, removal, disposal or export as the case may be. तो states के ऊपर obligation है protection का. It does not mean that state is the sole proprietary of all the heritage. Right? And if you see historically, the heritage that has survived because it is accepted by the community. What happened in modern times is state started disenfranchising community from its role in the heritage conservation. It was assumed कि people are threat to the institute or to the heritage. इनको पहले निकालो यहाँ से, compound डालो, fencing करो, then ये preserve होगा. ऐसे नहीं होता है. ठीक है? So we have INTACT, for example. INTACT is an NGO जो conservation काम करती है with government, with UNESCO, anywhere. It's a very famous thing. It has a charter in 2006. That charter talks about the limitations of this act, AMA-SR Act, 1959. So this act presumes that it is a role of state and community is a threat, like forest conservation, same बात है. So this act has many limitations. INTACT talks about the limitations of that, how community should play its role in the conservation, preservation of monuments and heritage. And we have local community also. I'll give an example, Ashokan pillars. Ashokan pillars, if you see in the colonial times, you read many stories कि pillar कैसे मिले. Very interesting stories. एक pillar गांव में कहीं खड़ा है, they say, oh, what is this pillar? British officer comes and sees the horse. What is this? ये भीम की गदा है. Mace of Bhim. How can it be Mace of Bhim? But people think Mace of Bhim. If you go to Ajanta, people will say, when Pandav were in Vanvas, they used to come and live here. So let us not destroy it. It's a good thing. So heritage is preserved by the community because either you can call them ignorant or the aura around the heritage keeps evolving, keeps changing. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, community played a role in the Bhim ki gada. तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं, इसको तोड़ो मत. ठीक है, बट व्हेन स्टेट कम्स इन, इट कम्स इन, भाई कोई और कुछ काम नहीं करेगा, इट मे बी निग्लेक्टेड, फंड्स माइट नॉट कम, दे मे गो फॉर इनअप्रोप्रिएट रिस्टोरेशन, लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स हैपन. So organic linkage between the community and monument is very important. Anyway, so these are very debatable things. The question that UPSC asked, if you see very closely, पीछे क्यों नहीं जाता है? This question, safeguarding the Indian art heritage is need of the moment. यहाँ पे if you had written the answer which is only of the state, that is incomplete. ठीक है. Sir, can we conclude that culture is a way of life while heritage, intangible or tangible, is the culture that we inherit from the predecessors? Yes, culture is a larger term. Heritage is a part of it. Some heritage help define cultural identity. Some heritage in the due course of time fall wayside and are neglected forever. We don't even know them. So they intersect. Okay, Amit. Let us go to next thing now. So this has been the background so far. Is that fine? Let us move on to the UNESCO. What is the role of UNESCO in all these things? So if you look at the mission statement of UNESCO, I like the line very much. Fantastic line. Why the UNESCO was created. The mission of UNESCO, as defined just after the end of the World War II, is to build the defenses of peace in the minds of men, so that the war will not happen again. The world war should not happen again. Defenses of peace in the minds of men. वैसे वुमेन भी चाहिए, बट वो अलग बात है. At that time it was a different era, तो धीरे धीरे चीज़ें बदलती है. Let us say human, but defenses of peace in the minds of men. When it can happen? When you have appreciation of culture, education. UNESCO works in the very same sense. It is a typical question that they can ask in mains sometimes. Yes, IR में वगैरह. The political role of UN has not been very substantial, but other agencies of UN have had a very great contribution to the world overall. तो क्या क्या उसमें आता है? One of the chief is UNESCO. So let us come here. So it is a specialized UN agency founded in 1945 in the context of World War II. In the World War II, you see a lot of destruction took place. So French people were so fond. I don't know whether it is a real story or a concocted legend, but it is said that when Nazi forces came and invaded France, and they came on the border of Paris, Paris literally melted away like Kabul yesterday. They did not even put defenses. 1870s वगैरह they defense लगाते थे. उन्होंने बोला नहीं, Nazi people come, they will destroy our monuments. We don't want our monuments to be destroyed. Let us surrender. And even Hitler, I don't know, इतना उनका प्यार बताएंगे कल्चर के प्रति कि गुलामी ले लेंगे, कल्चर को डिस्ट्रॉय मत करो हमारे. Anyway, it may be untrue story, but still, point is, in the World War II, lot of destruction of many heritages took place, and for that it not to be happen again, UNESCO came into being. 5 major programs: education, the natural sciences, social human sciences, culture, and communication. Our interest for this lecture is only and only culture. So we are looking at only that part of UNESCO and not the entire UNESCO. Please keep that in mind. UNESCO has a larger role in education and other things. We are concerned only about culture wala part. Constitution of UNESCO, if you read it's a very small constitution of like 1 or 2 pages only. There is a statement: by assuring the conservation and protection of the world's inheritance of books, works of art, and monuments of history and science, and recommending to the nations concerned the necessary international conventions. UNESCO का task ही है, as per its mission as well as its constitution, to help preservation, conservation, promotion of the world heritages. So, massive destruction of historical and artistic monuments in the war, इसके यूनेस्को का उत्पत्ति हुई, but the world was not willing to accept because it was a very novel thing. So, a lot of debate took place, and even UNESCO did not understand its historic role at that time. There was one development going on in Egypt, building of Aswan Dam on the river Nile. It was पहले funding France से आएगा, then it might come from the US. US said no, it came from the USSR. Cold War politics, Nasser, all these things going on. So in the process, Aswan was being built, and lot of Egyptian heritage sites went underwater forever, and they had to be saved. So for 5 to 7 years, almost global campaign took place. many NGOs, many countries, many institutions participated to safeguard those monuments. Unko nikalo, they took it out, they put it somewhere else, conserved it, documentation, everything took place. It was the first global successful campaign for the protection of heritage after World War II. Then similar campaigns took place in other regions. I have listed a few of them here in Florence, in Venice, and in Barbador. And then people started gradually accepting, okay, we need global efforts, not such institution wise or place or site wise. We need to have permanent structures for such conservation. And then UNESCO started coming into its being. But UNESCO was handicapped. What is UNESCO? UNESCO is nothing but people coming together and talking. So they needed conventions, they needed doctrines, they needed technical assistance. So you see, we have two institutions coming up. One is ICCROM in 1956. You know, for UNFCCC, what is UNFCCC? It depends on the technical support of which institution. Reports of IPCC. Right? If IPCC is not there, UNFCCC can't work. IPCC provides enough technical support for UNFCCC to function, to take decisions, to deliberate. So every global convention which comes with a secretariat and mandate needs technical support first. And IPCC gives that support to UNFCCC. Right? Similarly, you have this thing, two things, ICOMOS and then ICCROM. ICCROM is about museums and ICOMOS is about Council of Monuments and Sites. So these are technical partners of UNESCO which help UNESCO. Sir, your voice is too low. Am I audible now? I can see the... Am I audible? Vikash? Hello? Okay, okay, thank you. So, ICOMOS बनने के बाद you see the changes taking place at a faster pace. Before that, UNESCO was handicapped. Nothing but some people coming together sitting in Paris, headquarter Paris है UNESCO का. So they started forming conventions. We have 6 cultural conventions of UNESCO so far. If you go through each one of them one by one, and if you go to the underlying principles of those conventions, you come to know the mental leap that has taken place in the world in last 70-75 years. What thoughts were behind the first convention, the Hague Convention, and what thoughts are behind today in 2005 convention. The ideas have changed. The sociological lens has improved. Okay, these are all of them are based on human rights, agreed. But more than that, initially it was very modernist, unilateral, one vision of history, historical determinism, protection, no restoration, a lot of things were there. Gradually you see changing happening. But we do not need to study all of them. What we need to know, for us only 2 are important. One is the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage, 1972, under which you have World Heritage Sites. Ittefakan, coming year is the 50th year of this convention. 50 saal pure ho rahe. It is very important for either prelims or mains. Some question might come. 50 years in the life of such an important convention is a very important thing, significant thing. Even articles might start coming in newspapers now after a few months. जब होंगे 50 साल वाले शुरू. But I am just pointing it out for याद रखना है इसको. For us it is doubly important because 50 years and Dholavira and Kakatiya, Ramappa temple, both of them got inscribed in the list this year only. So हमारे लिए it becomes very much important. The second convention is called ICH Convention, Intangible Cultural Heritage 2003. So back then in 1972, only tangible heritage was defined as heritage. Gradually they came to know कि इसमें problems है, we need other things as well. So evolution हो रहा है thought में. You see, apart from these conventions, which are the 6 basic UNESCO conventions for cultural conservation and other things, we have other programs and registers and initiatives which are not convention based, but nonetheless they are important. Your Memory of the World program. India is part of this, and we know there are around 10 things. Maitreya Vyakarana, IAS manuscript of Tamil Nadu. But 10 things. If you don't know, we can take them separately. But 10 important things are there in the Memory of the World program register. Then we have Creative Cities Network. India is part of it. How many cities are there? 5. and 2 are in the tentative list, right? And you have Global Geoparks Network. India is not part of it yet. It might become in future, we don't know. And then man and biosphere, वो तो चलो संतोष सर पढ़ा लेंगे, so I won't care about that. 18th of April is celebrated every year as the International Day for Monuments and Sites since 1982 by ICOMOS. ICOMOS, we have seen already, technical partner of UNESCO for preservation of monuments and sites. So far ठीक है, समझ में आ रहा है? Let us understand this convention first. What is 1972 World Heritage Convention? Have you seen the convention? There is nothing much, but there are a few very important aspects of it. The first is the definition of cultural and natural heritage. I actually read a paper day before yesterday about how this convention came into being. All the documents of the deliberation, negotiation, discussion, diplomacy before 1972 in UNESCO are lost forever. Sab jal gaya. There was a fire in their office some time ago, everything is destroyed. So in 1992, after 30 years of the convention, the people who piloted the convention, they are requested to write their memoirs. तो वो मैंने पढ़ा जाके कि भाई कन्वेंशन, बिकॉज आई हैड दिस प्रॉब्लम इन माइंड कि व्हाई संतोष से और मेरा सब्जेक्ट इंटरसेक्ट हो गया. इन्वायरमेंट अलग है, ये अलग है, बट इन द सिंगल हेरिटेज, इन द सिंगल कन्वेंशन, सिंगल अथॉरिटी, but environment and physical, historical, cultural heritage are mixed. Why? What is the logic behind it? Have you ever thought of this question? These could have been two different things altogether. What is the need? I was curious for that question. I started to read about it. There is no definite answer. The answer is political, nothing else. There is no conceptual idea or something or enlightenment. Nothing is there. Richard Nixon का era चल रहा था. Many political things happened and it is what it is. That's all. Nothing else. Things came too far before they could be changed in negotiation. But anyway, so we have the definition of what constitutes cultural heritage and natural heritage, which is of the outstanding value to humanity. This is the main technical word, because something can be heritage to you, something can be heritage to me. Everybody has heritage, but which heritage qualifies to become global heritage, world heritage, which has outstanding value to the humanity. And what is that outstanding value? For that you have various attributes. ये लंबी लाइट कतार है. Attributes अगर fulfill करेगी criteria, then only it becomes outstanding heritage. ठीक है. Then you have national and international protection of heritage के institutions होते हैं. You have World Heritage Committee of 21 countries coming together and deliberating and giving this award or not. And you have the fund. The idea of heritage is evolving. जैसे कि I talked about tangible heritage, then we had intangible heritage. In between, people thought, but this heritage is nonetheless nationally determined. National government comes and says ki what will become heritage, what will not become heritage. Sometimes what happens, heritage is distributed across national lines, Silk Road. If you go to the tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites today, you will find Silk Road. ये किसका है heritage? It's humanity's heritage. And nobody was there back in 70s or 80s or 90s to propose this, nominate this. Now people are thinking of transnational heritage because these political boundaries have come today. They were not earlier. There is another candidate for it, which is not in the tentative list, but many people say it should become. That is the brick temples of East India, which are divided into both Bangladesh and West Bengal. They collectively form one heritage, right? तो एनीवे नेचुरल में वो आसान हो जाता है, हिस्टोरिकल में दिक्कत होती है, कल्चरल में. देन नेक्स्ट यू हैव समथिंग कॉल्ड एज कल्चरल लैंडस्केप, अंडर विच यू हैव कांचनजंगा एज आइडेंटिफाइड वन ऑफ 40. So this is not only single physical structure but the entire landscape which combines both natural and cultural. It's a combined concept of heritage. तो concept evolve होती जा रही है. Anyway, let us move on. तो यहाँ से करें. So we have 3 points to be understood. Outstanding universal value, meet one or more criteria to demonstrate the value. Then you have to meet the obligations of authenticity and integrity. Authentic culture, authentic heritage मतलब क्या है? वही है जो था. It has not changed. It is not a photocopy of it. ठीक है, दिस इज द ऑथेंटिक पीपीटी एंड दिस इज ऑथेंटिक नोट्स, नो दिस इज प्रिंट आउट, ठीक है। बट इन डिजिटल एरा तो आजकल और प्रॉब्लम है, मतलब व्हाट इज ऑथेंटिक, तो एनीवे, तो यू हैव दिस एट्रीब्यूट्स, उसकी लिस्ट है पूरी, देन यू हैव टू क्वालिफाई टू क्राइटेरिया ऑफ ऑथेंटिसिटी एंड इंटीग्रिटी, एंड देन thirdly you have to demonstrate the adequate protection and management. In the country has laws, norms, rules, laws, institutions, funds to ensure the protection. There is a lot of politics around it. Many people sometimes see कि ये बहुत pressure आ रहा है, we want to delist our WHS. There have been 3 instances so far when people say कि there are a lot of onerous restrictions being put on the country to conserve the heritage, उससे अच्छा उसको हटा ही दो. We want to develop, हमारे पॉपुलेशन बढ़ रही है, डेवलप करना है, लेट अस रिमूव इट सो दैट वी वोंट हैव टू फॉलो दोज नॉर्म्स. ये हुआ है, रिसेंटली लिवरपूल का हुआ था, लिवरपूल ने हटा दिया, उसको हटाया गया वैसे, ठीक है. तो इवन इन इंडिया वी सी कि इट इज ऑलवेज नॉट ऑलवेज गुड टू गेट लिस्टेड देयर. फर्स्टली इट टेक्स लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट्स, डिप्लोमेसी, listing process, nomination process, it is not easy. Secondly, it has its both pros and cons. Back in the 70s, India opposed this convention. Do you know that? Not only India, many developing countries used to oppose कि we don't want. What they thought? They thought Cold War is going on. We are recently decolonized countries. The political freedom अभी अभी मिला है, and now these Western countries are coming back again to take control of our monuments. There is our sovereignty. So it was a huge debate, but the fine balance was found out. That's when I say कि these are outstanding interests to constitute a universal value. So as a result, international community is committed to protect them under the sovereignty of countries where they are located. The sovereignty of country on those monuments should not be diluted, but it is not easy. Then this concept of common heritage was so debated that time, at least somehow consensus emerged. 20 years after that, we have CBD, 1992, new convention in biodiversity. At that time, the same debate happened. Should the biodiversity be called as the common heritage of the world? But countries were so fighting with each other, they said no. There was no consensus emerging, and they thought of word common interest, but they did not use the word common heritage because international consensus was fractured by that time. So how far your international laws can go and intervene in the sovereignty of individual nations is the maximum extent you can see right now. Anyway, it defines cultural and natural properties and monuments, sites and territories. Only 3 things: monuments, sites and territories. It excludes material and immaterial goods of undoubtedly equal value like scientific knowledge that might come into intangible heritage. Painting, sculpture, literature, music, etc. is not part of World Heritage Sites. It is part of intangible or memory of the world अगर documented है तो, manuscripts वगैरह. And the third thing is that cultural and natural are of equal level despite all the differences. ठीक है, same convention for both of them. आगे चले. So these are the criteria. There are 10 selection criteria. We don't need to go into detail. I have just given them for your reference if at all you need to know. There are 10 criteria, of which first 6 govern cultural heritage and later 4 govern natural heritage. So these are 6 criteria that govern cultural heritage identification. We won't read them. So I will just move ahead. Debate about authenticity. This is again last thing from the analytical point of view, then moving on to factual things. Back in the days, there was a Venice Charter in 1964. It is nothing but an effort of the global community. Many people, scholars, academies, institutions came together, civil society, etc., and they framed this charter. And this charter was for international framework for conservation and restoration of historical buildings. See, so far I have been using these words conservation, preservation, restoration interchangeably. They are not. There is a very fundamental difference in all these terms. I will talk of only 2 important terms here. My mobile got. Okay. The first is preservation. And then you have conservation. And the entire debate is around these 2 words. It is same for forestry एंड सेम फॉर हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट्स एज वेल. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस प्रिजर्व कॉन्जर्व, क्या फर्क है, सर बताइए. राइट. even if it is broken, even if it is dilapidated, it is like getting destroyed. You cannot apply modern tools and rectify it. You cannot restore it. That is preserve. पहले जैसा रखो उसको. When you found it, if it is broken, you should continue it being broken. You should allow it to continue as broken. तो जोड़ना नहीं, जोड़ोगे तो it will lose the test of authenticity. It is modern thing. It is not the historical thing. Then it is not your heritage of that day. That is preservation. And then preservation is a very modernist idea. Modernist in a negative sense. In 1930s, 40s, 50s, modernist thought. अब modernist वाला thought पीछे चला गया. तो modernist view क्या बोलता है कि no reconstruction allowed. So they thought fear of false history. कोई नया खरीद, जैसे if I go and if I am Ambani, I build a new Taj Mahal in Mumbai tomorrow. Same time, I have money, power, I can build it. No. क्या वो ताजमहल ऑथेंटिक कहा जाएगा? सेम टू सेम, नथिंग, सेम मार्बल नहीं होगा, ऑथेंटिक नहीं है. बट इट कैन बी प्रमोटेड टू क्रिएट फॉल. तो मॉडर्निस्ट लोग सोचते हैं भाई इट इज इनकरेक्ट, यू हैव टू हैव वैल्यू टू ओनली दैट ओरिजिनल थिंग. ओरिजिनलिटी के बारे में दे हैड लॉट ऑफ एम्फेसिस. देन यू हैव आइडिया ऑफ हिस्टोरिक डिटर्मिनिज्म. फॉर एग्जांपल, लेट अस से आया सोफिया, ह्यूज डिबेट, इज इट अ क्रिश्चियन हेरिटेज और अ मुस्लिम हेरिटेज? So whatever has happened happened. Now you can't change it. बाबरी मस्जिद बन गई तो बन गई भाई, खत्म. That is modernist view, not revisionist. तो अच्छा कहो, बुरा कहो, that's a different thing, but you can't change it. It is how you found it, you preserve it. So then there is something in third world में क्या होता है? These are not isolated monuments. Like in environmental thing you have green movement and third world problems, right? In here also the same analogy can be used. Go to Chandni Chowk. There are many Havelis and Kothis. Some of them 100 years, 200 years old. Right? They need preservation. But you can't go and say कि भाई चलो लोगों को हटाओ यहाँ से. Historical, can't do that. People are using that for their daily life. They're living and they are still helping it to continue. तो थर्ड वर्ल्ड में ऑथेंटिसिटी के साथ, वो अगर मैं हवेली में रह रहा हूँ, फॉर एग्जाम्पल चित्तौड़ का किला, उसके यहाँ कोई या फिर जैसलमेर जाओ, जयपुर जाओ, वहाँ पे बड़े बड़े राजपूतों के होटल है, जो पहले उनके किले थे, उनके महल थे. राइट. ये हवा महल, वो तो चलो कॉपी, वो तो अलग बात होगी. बोले कि द रॉयल्टी जहाँ रहती थी, द सेम महल आर टुडे होटल्स. राइट. इट्स ओके. At least if you stop allowing that, what will happen? It will fall disuse and neglect and get destroyed over time. It is getting commercialized. That's a bad taste. I agree. ठीक है, that's a bad thing. उसमें feeling चली जाती है. At the same time, because of it, there is a revenue. Tax can be paid. It can be helped continue being in good shape. तो वो changes. Living monuments जो होते हैं ना, so you will find those thing in the third world more than the first or second world. सेकंड वर्ल्ड तो है नहीं वैसे, लेकिन फिर भी. बट दिस वाज नॉट अलाउड इन दिस चार्टर. 2012 में माली was under civil war. Still lot of things are going on there. So when rebels entered the city Timbuktu, which was a World Heritage Site, they started destroying everything. Recently ISIS, Palmyra in Syria, we know that they destroyed many things. If tomorrow this Palmyra is recovered, जैसे भी होता है, and people go there, scientists go and historians go, they want to reconstruct it, should they be allowed? टूटा टूटा ही रहने दो. Pami and Buddha, it is getting reconstructed, right? So lot of things came into being gradually, because of which people started allowing कि भाई नहीं, third world has different realities, economic, social factors are different, monuments have their continuous acculturation, continuous change in the aura or authenticity. So we have something called as progressive authenticities, or what you can call as layers of history. Same monuments being used by different people in different era for different purpose doesn't matter. It's okay. It is a monument. Let it be. You can't go and select be out of the continuous 1000 years of history. Those 200 years are more authentic compared to other 200 years. तो history को erase कर दो. Who are you to select? You can't select that. Right? So We have something called as Nara document. Nara was a place in Japan. So Japan में वो धीरे see Japanese people have this problem that they have wooden monuments. And after every few generations, they have to rebuild it. A Buddhist, yeah, Buddhism when entered Japan around 1500 years ago, they built one stupa there in a pagoda form. Pagoda is nothing but stupa. Pagoda built किया, धीरे धीरे वो टूट गया, नया बनाया, टूट गया, नया बनाया. You go to Bengal, brick temples. You will not find a brick temple older than 500 years because bricks get disintegrated in the atmosphere and climate of East India. You keep building new bricks all the time. Even though temple at that place in the same shape, same size, same place was there for 2000 years, you are rebuilding it every 500 years. How old the temple is? 2000 या 500. So that's the issue. So for third world, for other issues, there are a lot of things, intangible things coming up. So we have a modified version of what is called authentic today. We have layers of history and all layers are equally valid. You cannot go and select कि इसको हटाओ, इसको रखो. No. Anyway, let us move on. This is the statistics of cultural sites and natural sites in the world. The country which has the highest number, prelim wala question, highest number of world heritage sites is Italy because of Roman heritage and Renaissance heritage both. Italy, 58 sites are there. India comes at the 6th with 40 sites recently. So there are total 897 in the world, of which India has 32, 218 out of which 7, and total around 1,154, of which India has 40. The latest data. This is the number. Okay? Let us move on. Look at the distribution of such sites across the globe in regions and not countries only. You quickly come to know that with 47%, Europe and North American continent has highest number of world heritage. पैसा उनके पास है. They are funding it. For most of the years, countries amongst those places only were part of World Heritage Committee of the 21 countries which selected sites. So Europe is disproportionately presented or represented in the World Heritage Convention sites. Okay. And their view, their perspective gets imposed on other countries as well. So the World Heritage Convention states deterioration or disappearance of any item of the cultural or natural heritage constitutes a harmful impoverishment of the heritage of all the nations in the world. So कहीं भी वो खराब हो, नुकसान पूरे दुनिया का है. However, imbalances in recognition, interpretation, and ultimately conservation of various cultural manifestations continue to exist, and you can see the numbers. Lately, other countries have had wherewithal, money, courage, ability, diplomatic skills, documentation skills, academic skills to go and collect and do surveys, all those things to be able to represent at global level, and money, etc. So this is the story. Now come to what India is doing at UNESCO. Firstly, if you had this question, India is also part of UNESCO, so India must be contributing some money, giving every year. How much of it? That is India har saal. So this is the number I got. $28,000 lagbhag India gives to UNESCO every year. When I was in US, my semester ki fee was $14,000 10 years ago. Okay. So even though I had a scholarship, that's a different thing. But a friend of mine who did not have scholarship ended up paying this much amount individually for only 1 year of education. इतना इंडिया मतलब you claim हमारा GDP इतना है, उतना है, पैसे नहीं है भाई. Anyway, Indian National Commission for Cooperation with UNESCO, NCCU, National Commission for Cooperation with UNESCO. UNESCO is the only and only UN agency of all these agencies which says कि for countries to collaborate with it, they have to form a commission. बाकी में diplomacy can be very fluid, but with UNESCO you have to have the commission. It is the only which explicitly demands that. So India has been a member of UNESCO since its inception, but UNESCO is the only UN body which has encouraged its members to establish national commissions. उसका आर्टिकल 7 में ही वो चीज़ आ जाती है फॉर लाइजनिंग विथ इट. अकॉर्डिंगली इंडिया डिड सो एंड इंडियाज commission was established in 1951. So this commission functions very informally, but it has some formal norms. Its president is always the minister of human resource and development. HRD minister जो होता है एजुकेशन का, मतलब HRD कहेंगे, he is always this president of this commission, and the secretary is the secretary of Department of Higher Education by default. This commission has its members from 5 subcommittees which come from various departments and ministries: natural science, education, social science, communication, and culture. These ministries are represented in this commission through their subcommittees. ठीक है? This is all about UNESCO, but we are concerned only about this single part of culture and not the other parts. So let us see वहाँ पे क्या होता है. So we have UNESCO cell in the Ministry of Culture. If you see, go to website of Ministry of Culture and download their annual reports. Very interesting reports. Every year they print the same thing. I read almost 5 reports of 5 years in last 10 days just to identify क्या चल रहा है. Almost same thing every year. So they have a chapter of tangible heritage institutions, intangible heritage institutions, and knowledge traditions and institutions. 3-part same report going on every year. In the tangible heritage, they have last or second last chapter called UNESCO cell. In the UNESCO cell, they talk about these 4 things. So Ministry of Culture liaisons with the UNESCO for management of these 4 conventions: intangible heritage and other 3, including creative cities, memory of the world program, and this cultural diversity convention. It does not do so for World Heritage Cell. That ASI does. ASI comes under culture, that's different thing. But UNESCO cell जो है ये 4 के लिए काम करता है. So this is the performance of India in UNESCO. Look at the numbers. We have 37 exclusive entries and 3 multinational entries. So we have 40 entries in the World Heritage List. We need to know all those 40 by heart. We should be able to write answers in the main exam on each of them individually. That's what I said in the beginning. Question aa rahe hai on those themes, on those topics. Secondly, memory of the world register. We have total 9 of them. I thought 10, but 9. Then we have intangible cultural heritage. These are 13. These are largely important from the prelims point of view. If you demand so, after this is over, we can think of having a separate lecture for these 2 as well. But I have not planned them right now. If you want, we can think of that. Then Creative Cities Network, again 5, and Srinagar is recommended now. So 2 recommend Srinagar and something else. So 5 plus 2 on the tentative list. Then this is for other things. This is our overall performance in UNESCO so far. This is a map. Again, forget the Kashmir wala part. Okay, I can't do much about it, sadly. We don't have good map makers in India who use and create maps and put on internet all the time. So this is the site of all UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India. It's a map. Again, in mapping, questions in mapping can also come. Map दिया है, point दिया है, बताओ कौन सी site है. So you need to be able to identify all the sites. I will go from region to region. Here northeast में Assam has 2, Sikkim has 1. Total 3. East India we have 5. North India we have 10. West India, Goa, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan together 15. Central India only MP, no Chhattisgarh, then 3. South India we have 8. This is the overall idea of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India. We will walk you through each of them one by one. That is the main objective of this program or the lecture. How many of them you can identify? Let's start. Sir, बताइए. I will just point it out. Only for 2 or 3 sites I will do randomly. You tell me which site is that. Yes, भाई. यहाँ कोई अगर बता पाए, अरे मैप में मत देख के बताना. Can anybody tell me which site is this? Sun Temple, Konark. ठीक है. Okay, tell me which site is this? It's not Karnataka. Lonar Lake. That's in Buldhana district, somewhere here. This site is in Goa. The churches of Goa, built by Portuguese. Okay. Then, which is this? Please don't do that. This is the latest site that got inscribed, Kakatiya Ramappa temple. Okay. So anyway, as we walk through all of them one by one, you will get to know everything of them. Don't worry. But I have done some more analysis for you to get the perspective of what is going on. This is the chronological sequence of the inscriptions of all the sites one by one from first year to the last year. The first site that India got inscribed into UNESCO, 1983. 1 year before Indira Gandhi died. Okay. The thing is that the convention came in 1972. We took 11 years to inscribe the site. Suspicion kitna tha dekho. Third world ka. Which were the first 4 sites? We have Ajanta, Ellora, Fort of Agra and Taj Mahal. 2 in Maharashtra, 2 in Agra. These were the first 4 sites that India got inscribed. The latest one, Kakatiya Ramappa temple and Dholavira. In between we have all other sites. It is a chronological sequence of the inscriptions of the sites in the UNESCO list. Okay? Then move ahead. This is the era-wise division of those sites. Which sites belong to ancient India? Which of them belong to medieval India? So I have grouped them accordingly. You see, we have 2 sites from prehistory, Bhimbetka and Dholavira. Only 2 sites from the prehistory. History. What is the meaning of prehistory? What is prehistory? Anybody? Before any mention, see, exactly, before literature. So before the knowledge of literature, writing came out. Speaking ki to thi. So the era about which you can get to know from the written sources, that is history. And before that is prehistory. Because writing it down, perhaps people used to think initially that you need to have consciousness of history and time to be able to write history. But now we know the oldest documents that survive in the written format are generally not of history writing by historians. It is of accounts. CAs ruled the world all the time. Rome was run by CAs and not the Caesars. बेबीलोनिया में जाओ, मेसोपोटामिया के सब अकाउंट उनका, उसके बिना एम्पायर नहीं चलता है. Empire run by this finance men, account men. The oldest document, rather writing art developed also for those things. How many animals we have hunted today? Put some symbols. Let us not go into linguistics or anthropological linguistics, but anyway, so we have 2 prehistorical sites. Between history and prehistory, we have something called as proto-history. Proto-history can mean 2 different things. One is that this is an era in which there was a script which we have not been able to decipher yet. So Harappa for us is a prehistory, or it is a proto-history in a sense. But that is our limitation, not Harappa people's limitations. There is second meaning. When Rome was invaded by Germanic tribes from north, Roman people wrote about Germanic people who were their contemporaries. But Germanic people did not know what to write, how to write. So they were in their prehistory, but their neighbors wrote upon them, so that becomes proto-history for us. Okay? Anyways, for example, I go to some tribal area today, that tribal language cannot be written, it doesn't have script. So for them, they are in prehistory. But I am writing about them. It is proto-history. Anyway, in ancient India, we have 8 sites. Bodh Gaya, Kanchi, Ajanta, Ellora, Pattadkal, Mahabalipuram, Elephanta and Nalanda. All of them have close connections with religion. Nalanda is also largely a religious site for Buddhist learning. Although it has many other things also, it is also a largely Buddhist site. So all of them are religious sites in ancient India which we have chosen to consider as heritage. Then come to early medieval. We have Chola temples, Khajuraho, Konark, Rani Ki Vav. Again, all of them religious. Rani Ki Vav is also a religious site, although it is a vav, that is Bhavdi, that is a well, but it is constructed as if it is a temple. We will see the details. Medieval times, Qutub Minar, Kakatiya Ramappa temple, hill forts of Rajasthan. For the first time, you have pure non-religious, I won't call it secular because on many of the forts they do temples, but hill forts of Rajasthan, defense tactics. Hampi, Champaner, Pavagadh, Ahmedabad, churches of Goa, Humayun Tomb, Agra Fort, Fatehpur Sikri, etc. We have 14 medieval sites, largest number. These 4 can be grouped either here or here, but they are early medieval. Then we have some modern sites as well in the colonial era. But the classification that I have chosen for us to understand all the sites one by one is not chronological like this. Either the chronology of inscription, I have grouped them in like quasi chronological thematic way. Firstly, we will see the prehistoric heritage, 2 sites, rock shelter Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh and Dholavira in Gujarat on the Khadir Belt, Khadir Island in Kutch. Then early structures, ancient nonetheless. You have Bodh Gaya, Kanchi, Ajanta, Ellora, Elephanta, Nalanda. These are early structures. Then you have temples and temple cities. So we have Pattadkal. These are not chronological by the way, they are thematic. Pattadkal, Mahabalipuram, Chola temples, Kakatiya Rudreshwara and Hampi. These all come from either Dravid or Vesar. Like Pattadkal is Vesar, but it is not purely Vesara. यहाँ से तो बदामी ऐहोल पट्टडकल से you see the beginning of Vesara. The formative stage, it's a cradle of Indian temple architecture. Badami ऐहोल पट्टडकल triangle. ठीक है. इनके महाबलीपुरम of Pallavas. This is the beginning of or the first great structures of Dravid school of architecture in temple. Then the highest are Chola temples. 3 of them are there. There are thousands of them, but 3 of them are there in the UNESCO list. Then you have Kakatiya Rudreshwara temple. Again, you come back to Vesara school or style. Hampi. Hampi is South Indian school merging to some extent with Islamic influences. So Hampi is a city. Khajuraho, group of monuments. Again, it's like spread across region. A city, kind of city only. And then Konark. So Khajuraho and Konark are Nagar style, of which Khajuraho is proper Nagar and Konark is Kalingan style, which is a subtype of Nagar. Okay, so this is, I will go through them one by one, but this is the temples and temples, temple cities. Then you come to monuments and mausoleums, tombs and other monuments in the medieval time. You have Rani Ki Vav at Patan. Who was the Rani? Patan's Rani Udaymati, the wife of Bhimadavan, Solanki king. You have Qutub Minar and its monuments. So Qutub Minar is not the only monument which is world, the entire complex is the World Heritage Site. You go anywhere, you will see isolated monument is hardly a monument in the World Heritage. The requirements and norms are so onerous that to be able to fit into those scheme of things, we have to talk of the past, the present, the landscape, the people, the culture, the economy, entire landscape and complex, everything. So hardly ever there would be example 1 or 2 in which the single monument would be heritage. Heritage is the entire package that comes along with it. You have Humayun's tomb in Delhi, Taj Mahal and Jantar Mantar. So these 2 are Mughal monuments. In tombs, we have one that comes after the Mughals, Jantar Mantar in Jaipur, and then you have Rani Ki Vav in Gujarat, Qutub Minar in Delhi. Then come to cities and forts in medieval times. We have Champaner Pavagadh in Gujarat. These were twin capitals of Gujarat in the Sultanate era and just before that. You have Ahmedabad, the historic city of Gujarat. Fatehpur Sikri in UP, again a city entirely built by Pacha Akbar. Jaipur city in Rajasthan, Sawai Jai Singh. Agra Fort, Red Complex Fort and Hill Forts of Rajasthan. So we have these 3 as forts or hill forts. यहाँ पे total 6 forts हैं, but still we have these 2 tombs, and Qutub Minar also contains a lot of tombs. So this is also partly a tomb. Then we have these 2 cities which are exclusively cities. We have these 2, sorry, Fatehpur Sikri as well, cities. So all 4 of them, but these 2 are in North India, in Gujarat. And we have these temples. Mahabalipuram is a temple city. We have Pattadkal temple city. So these are also cities. Come to modern times. I have taken Goa into modern purposefully because it was a colonial architecture. European sensibilities coming to India. So Goa is fitted into that, although it is contemporary to, or rather before, some of them are before Mughal. So churches and convents of Goa, very important. These monuments are so important that they are the best examples of spread of Christianity into entire Asia. The movements of Jesuits, Francis Xavier, disciple of Loyola Ignatius, का यहाँ पे ये रखा है एस्केट. तो यहाँ से शुरुआत होती है चाइना में क्रिश्चियनिटी की. एनीवे, माउंटेन रेंज ऑफ इंडिया, 3 of them are there in 3 parts of India: Eastern Himalaya, Western Himalaya, and Nilgiris. TST, which used to be called as VT, Victoria Terminus, earlier in Mumbai. Then another in Mumbai, Victorian Gothic structure on the eastern Mumbai, eastern coast, and Art Deco in the western side of Mumbai. And Le Corbusier, of which it's a global thing. One of it is in India, that is Chandigarh. But Corbusier के दुनिया भर के सारे स्ट्रक्चर उसमें आ जाते हैं. ठीक है. So this is the scheme of things. We will not go into details of this much. We will see them very perfunctorily. We will go into details of all one by one. That is our task, and it will be very important and useful for both prelims and mains, especially this year. Okay. You want a break for 2 minutes? I don't know what online people say. Do you want a break for 2 minutes? Yes, sir. चलो 6:24 हुआ है. We'll resume in 6:26. ठीक है. बहुत बिल्कुल ठंडी हो गई यार. Is it going fine so far? If you have any doubt, request, question, I think I have missed 1 or 2 questions. Sir, it is hard to remember all these facts. Please suggest some ways. See, facts, if you understand the story and context, understand the aura, facts will be remembered very automatically. Just enjoy the aura. Don't go into mugging all these things up. It doesn't help. Questions don't come that way. If you have any other question, please ask. हाँ हाँ, कहाँ पे? ठीक है. 2021. So in the pre-history, we'll see 2 sites first. Rock shelters of Bhimbetka, Dholavira, a Harappan city. What I have done purposefully is to copy at the beginning of each monument the exact citation given by UNESCO. So whenever we begin with a new site, every time we'll read out the UNESCO citation. It is the best thing because firstly, all the important things which are of outstanding universal value are encapsulated in minimum words at one place. So if you want to revise the sites, revise these things. Secondly, if you want to write answers in main, you need to know how to become crisp. It's the best place. You cannot be crisper than this. Okay. So let us start. Bhimbetka. The rock shelters, I have this in print as well. The rock shelters of Bhimbetka are in the foothills of Vindhyan mountains on the southern edge of the central Indian plateau. So whenever they ask you to explain some monument, you can start with the location. Where is it located? And the location is not only name, district and state, it has a significance because that location has affected its cultural persona as well. Within massive sandstone outcrops, above comparatively dense forest are 5 clusters of natural rock shelters. So when I said it is a landscape, means that it is a landscape where nature का role होता है. That's why the first 3-4 lines are given even by UNESCO to talk about the landscape context. And then they come to what we are generally talking about, paintings. So displaying paintings that appear to date from the Mesolithic period right through the historic period. Historic matlab बाद में. Generally it is about 10th century CE. You know this CE and AD वाला issue पता है? Generally old books use BC and AD. But this is very Christianity centric. So new NCERT does not use it. That came in 2006. They use BCE and CE. Before Common Era, and Common Era. So it is more secular. It is not Christianity centric. So BC and AD is discarded by NCERTs. It is a good practice. We should not use also. क्यों करना है इस्तेमाल? But I think यूनेस्को का कुछ जगह you will see पुराने हैं तो उन्होंने BCD रखा है. It's fine. The cultural traditions of the inhabitants of the 21 villages adjacent to the site bear a strong resemblance to those represented in the rock paintings. So question कहाँ से आया था? Paintings जो है ये मेस का क्वेश्चन था, याद है? तो एक हिंट आपको यहाँ मिलेगा, आंसर क्या लिखना है. Modern sensibilities. But anyway, so this is the geographic, this is the painting, and this is the present day significance. ये मिलकर उसका भिमबेटका का डिस्क्रिप्शन हो गया. This is the ensemble of painting. Let us go into the details, few details, not all of them. Firstly, MCQ वाला question, where is it located? It is located in Ratapani. So Ratapani Wildlife Sanctuary, which is also a tiger reserve, at the heart of it you find Bhimbetka. A typical MCQ, and UPSC has asked this also some years ago. Discovered in 1957 by Wakankar, Vishnu Siddhar Wakankar. Typical story, he was going in train to Itarasi something, then he jumped out and then found this. It's a very legendary story in the circles of archaeology. And he is the person, the legendary person, जहाँ से India for the first time was able to say we also have painting is going back to Mesolithic era. Historic era painting everybody has, because after this Mesolithic era paintings, what we have suddenly is Ajanta. In between, we don't have anything. We have this tribal and such cave paintings going on, but from Dholavira, Hadappa se leke Mauryan era, you do not have any painting. Vedic era, no painting. We have potteries which are painted. That's a different thing. But we do not have paintings as such. The oldest painting that we find apart from these paintings is Ajanta only. To see the leap from these paintings to Ajanta paintings. But anyway, long cultural continuity from Mesolithic to historic. So it does not have Paleolithic paintings, although there are certain art forms in India which go back to Paleolithic era, which may be portable art like some eggshells, etc. See, ancient or rather prehistoric art is classified into 4 parts. You have petroglyphs, you have petrograph, you have portable art, like small stones, small teeth, something inscription carving on that eggshell, which is portable. And then finally you have cupules. Cupules is nothing but hammerings and the impressions of hammerings on the wall. Those cup shaped cupules. And one is engraving and other is painting. Okay? This is the prehistoric art you find, and you can categorize all prehistoric art into these 4 forms. So if the UPSC question was about prehistoric art as such, the first thing that we know is not to restrict our answer only to paintings. Painting would be one important but one dimension of the answer. Okay? Anyway, so we do not have Paleolithic art, sorry, we do have Paleolithic art, but we do not have Paleolithic paintings in India. Mesolithic are the oldest paintings. Now there can be debate about some painting, oh this goes back to Paleolithic or not, though debates are there, but generally what we regard is the oldest is Mesolithic. We have 5 clusters of such rock shelters, and there are overall 400 shelters in Bhimbetka. Not all of them are painted, but many of them are painted. Apart from paintings, you also find other material like knives, axes, etc. जो कि उस जमाने के हथियार थे. Unique cultural property representing a convergence displayed in the art form between the people and the landscape. People and the landscape. Convergence. That is the crux of this Bhimbetka thing. With links to the hunting-gathering economy of the past. Hunting-gathering economy of the past brings unique convergence of people and the landscape, and those hunting paintings you see on the walls. So if they ask a question in mains in which we have to elaborate on the Bhimbetka paintings, this is the most important line that you need to understand. If you write answer in this context, will give you highest marks. The philosophical underpinning वही है. Paintings are not paintings in themselves. Paintings represent human mind, human life. And what was the life? That life is rooted in the local landscape. What is that landscape? Forest. And what is life? Hunting, gathering life. How life is reflected in the paintings, that is the convergence. Okay. So if you want to understand the thematic division of the paintings of Bhimbetka, you can find such things. Firstly, you have animals. Lot of animals are painted there. Animals can be single, they can be in hordes. This specific painting is called as zoo rock, because there are hundreds of animals painted on the single rock, and various types of animals also. So it is found in Bhimbetka, it is called as zoo rock. Then you have painting like this, hunting and fishing. Hunting and fishing. You see, there is a pond with fishes. They have net, they are going and catching fish and then going home. So you also see various fish who are killed, they are just lying there. Okay. So fishing, hunting is not only hunting, fishing also is there. That is the point. And hunting can be of various types. So you see various emotions of people being displayed in Bhimbetka. Many hunting scenes. These are cupules, rock impressions. Not only Bhimbetka art consists of more than paintings. And why are these cupules formed? Because perhaps they were putting something on the rock again and again, striking it with something harder again and again. And why were they doing so? A music gallery or auditorium. So perhaps it is world's, or at least Indian subcontinent's oldest auditorium. They used to produce music. And the impressions of those music you can see here. Okay. So Bhimbetka is not only for painting, it is complete performance. Painting hai, rituals hai, hunting hai, dance, drama, music, sab kuch. But what survives is tangible part. But this is the outcome of intangible. Okay. Hunting is intangible. A trophy of the game is tangible. You cannot understand the importance of trophy unless you know how to hunt. But hunting is considered a bad thing, so let us not go there. Yes, sorcerers. No, sorcerers. They have human heads in their hand, they are wearing masks. So human killing was there or not? Was there some Jadoo, Tona, black magic, Jai Kali, Kalkatte wali? We do not know. Only the religious things, rituals, fears, bhoot, pret, sab kuch tha. Then you have families. And the head of the family is eating fish. के पेट में फिश है, ठीक है, छोटा बच्चा वहां पे है, they have utensils eating fish, तो यहाँ पे फिशिंग किया, आ गया फिश खा रहे हैं. So this is about thematic appreciation. What do you know? You know of their economy, you know of their hunting, you know of their ecological landscape, which you can even identify the animals, which is gaur and which is sambar and all those things. There is never a snake, by the way, any painting in India in that time. So you know their social structure, what kind of huts they used to live in. You know their religious aspirations and fears. So you can interpret the paintings to understand the society. And if you want to understand the painting stylistically, then you see X-ray hai. This is X-ray painting, for example. पेट में मछली गई है. They are naturalistic or stylistic. मतलब you can write many things on the colors कौन से है, how the colors were made, how they were painted, superimposition one upon another, location of painting in the cave. There are 10 things that you can write, which are not required for this class right now. But you can appreciate paintings in various ways. One is the content of painting, other is style of painting, third is location of painting, fourth is time of painting. So various inputs will give you various points in the answer. That is the point. Anyway, let's move on to next site. That is Dholavira. It should be read. It is important because it is inscribed this year only. Firstly, understand this map. Gujarat was one of the important places for Harappan sites, especially during mature and after mature, if not before mature. We have Lothal over here. We know that for dockyard. At one point of time, it used to be closer to sea. Now it is not, क्योंकि sea level recede हो गई है इतने सालों में. So it is not on the shore anymore. पहले था शायद. Then you have Dholavira over here. Apart from Lothal, Dholavira, your NCERT also talks of two more sites which are given over here. Firstly, you have Shikarpur. Three more sites are there. Shikarpur, you have Desalpur, and you have Surkotada. So Shikarpur, Desalpur, Surkotada are also, Surkotada is there also in the old NCERT. One of the places in which you have found the remains of the horse in the later era. Surkotada horse. You have Shikarpur and Desalpur important for angle work, which many other things. Anyway, let us read the Harappan city ka inscription in UNESCO. The ancient city of Dholavira, the southern center of Harappan civilization. So Harappan civilization can be envisaged having different domains: central domain, northern, eastern, western, southern. In the southern domain, one of the important cities is Dholavira. Is sited on the arid island of Khadir. I said Khadir Bet. It is in the island. It is not on the mainland. It gets submerged also. Uska side wala area. So access to Dholavira is not available. Dholavira is not accessible all the time by road. Sometimes you have to go by Nauka. Okay. So arid island of Khadir Bet in the state of Gujarat, occupied between 3000 to 1500 BCE. The archaeological site, one of the best preserved urban settlements. So it is preserved because it was in arid area away from main settlements in today's time. From the period in Southeast Asia, comprises of a fortified city, 1 point, fortified city, and a cemetery. These two are fortified city, fortification hai, but of what type? We need to understand that. The cemetery, that is also important, because you do not find cemeteries of Harappan era in all the cities. Cemeteries are at very few places. Akhigarh has a cemetery. Nauli has a cemetery. Harappa has a cemetery. Dholavira has a cemetery. Not all sites by default have cemeteries which are present today. You know what cemetery is? जहाँ मुर्दे को दफनाया जाता है. Two seasonal streams provided water, a scarce resource in the region. So arid region है. पीने का पानी कहाँ से आएगा? The two seasonal river streams. That is important. To the walled city, which comprises a heavily fortified castle and a ceremonial ground, as well as streets and houses of different proportion, quality, which testify to a stratified social order. So now they are going from tangible to intangible. From the structural aspect, city, the way it is divided into parts, we talk of why it was so. It must have been the reflection of social reality, that is stratified. So you have various parts. Now we say Harappa, we see two parts of city, citadel and common people's area. Likewise, we see in many other cities. Dholavira was not so. Dholavira has three parts in the city. You look at the map. City has three parts. Part 1, Part 2, common area. Part 3 is the ceremonial ground. Dholavira is divided in three parts. Anyway, come back. A sophisticated water management. So it is next important point. Sophisticated water management system, because it is in arid area. So structural part, fortified city. Social part, vision of city and cemetery, religion wala. Then you have water management system, ecological aspect. Demonstrates the ingenuity of the Dholavira people in their struggle to survive and thrive in the harsh environment. So when UPSC asks what can you learn from the past for today, don't say ki raste seedhe banao and they should intersect in 90 degrees. No, we need sanitation, we need water management systems. ये सीखना है आपको. ठीक है. The site includes a large cemetery with cenotaphs, जो ऊपर लिखे रहते हैं, tombstones. That is cenotaphs of 6 types. We have different types of cenotaphs testifying to the Harappan's unique view of death. So you have cultural diversity, multiculturalism in the same city. It is not only stratified, it is multicultural. People have different faith systems. That's why they are burying their dead in different patterns. If you follow same religion, same path, you will bury the same way. Okay. Bead processing workshops and artifacts of various kinds such as copper, shells, stone, jewelry of semi-precious stones, terracotta, gold, ivory and other materials have been found during the excavations of the site. It means that you have technological proficiency of being able to work on different types of material. It is artistic, craft wala angle. Okay, it is not technology and craft. Exhibiting the culture's artistic and technological achievements. This is next part. Evidence for inter-regional trade with other Harappan cities as well as cities with the Mesopotamia region and the Oman Peninsula have also been discovered. So the city was very important trade hub, trade center, entrepot. Trade with other parts of the Harappan cultural zone and also outside Harappan cultural zone. I would not say international. There was no nation at that time. Inter-regional, okay, and intra-regional. So this is the thing. So these are two river streams which are seasonal, coming here and coming there. There is no wall on this side. It was open. So defenses were little bit wavy. We have defense fortified wall. We have various ponds here. These get filled with water. So when water comes in here, it goes here and all the ponds are filled. They are tanks, open tanks. And the houses have water year round. This is the royal part, this is ground, these are other parts of the city. Okay? Now what is important? Press release of UNESCO, if you read on that day in Twitter, they have said a couple of more things which are of importance to us. Discovered in 1968, Dholavira is set apart by its unique characteristics such as a water management system. The first thing that the press release is water management system. UPSC can ask a question on this. How Hadappans acclimatized themselves or adjusted with the ecological realities. So you talk of Manda site in Jammu, Akhnur ke yahan. You talk of sites in arid region, you talk of sites on the river side, you talk of sites in different ecological zones and how various different methods were used which were suitable to those ecological zones. So each Hadappan city comes with its own idea. Dholavira talks of water management this way. You have Hadappa which is known for its wells. Hadappa के हर घर में कुआं है. मोहनजोदड़ो में कैनल्स है, नदी के यहाँ से आते हो. तुर्तुगाई में कुछ और है. So every city has its unique and locally relevant water management system. And Dholavira gives us the best example of its survival, how it was done. So that was the point. In the Kutch region, Dholavira is also known as Kotada Timba. That's a local name hai. Just a random fact. And other things. I just wanted to show you the water management systems in this. You have huge tanks. They are waterproof. You have wells. You have sluices and pipelines of that time. You have even here you have canals. You have wells and ponds, etc. So different types are used. The important thing of Dholavira is they use all the local. They do not use bricks. What they use? Stone. Hadappa uses bricks. It is available there. हाँ मिट्टी है ब्रिक बनाने के लिए. यहाँ पे है नहीं. What they use here? Stone. Stone is abundant. And again, so local material varies. Size varies. 3 parts of the city. You have site like Banavali, which is not even square or rectangle, which is circular site. So Hadappan sites can be of various size, various material, various types, various structures. But all of them have some element of planning. That is important. Not all plans are same, but there are plans in all the major urban sites. Three things I wanted to mention about Dholavira. 2 things are very important for MCQ as well. This is the polished pillar. Polish is gone today, but if you read our history book, the oldest polished pillars are found in which era? Mauryan era. Before Mauryan, we do not have the tradition of building pillars, except for one example over here, that is Dholavira. Between this pillar, for thousands of years till Maurya, we do not have pillars in between. This is an isolated survived example. So what survives in heritage, we cannot say. This is the longest board, written board, that is found in Dholavira. We have not been able to decipher the script, but it is the longest script that is. Other on seals, if you see, we have 4, 5, 7 characters maximum. This is longest you can find. It was like this. It was located where? It was located here. On this part. So it's a ground, public space. It's a wall. It's a door. And on the door or gate, on the gate you have this signboard. And this is the signboard. So what people say? They say if the signboard is displayed in the public space for public reading, it means the civilization itself was literate. It was for public use. So people used to know how to read. It's a big discovery. If it is true, if the logic is established, so people know how to read. So writing is not limited to only elite or some part of the society. So that eliminates a lot of things about Harappan society. And then this is chess or some kind of board game that you find in that era. इंडियंस तब से गेम खेल ही रहे हैं, ठीक है. इवन इन वेदास किसी बाप बेटे को डांटता है, इतना जुआ खेलेगा, खेती कर जाके. इट इज इन ऋग्वेद में लिखा है ये. एनीवे, ऋग्वेद हैज अ हिम फॉर जुआ, कैसे खेलना है. बट एनीवे, दैट इज आउटसाइड अवर थिंग. आई थिंक 7 o'clock आर ऑलमोस्ट. विल स्टॉप हियर. ठीक. बट इफ आई स्टार्ट तो पूरा सेशन खत्म नहीं होगा वो. ठीक है. So I will take one more lecture in which I will finish all the sites. The handout that I have provided does not contain all the sites. The rest of the second half I will give you, and then we will have entire thing. Schedule आपको पता चल जाएगा. ठीक है. If you have any questions so far, please ask. उसको पहले address कर देते हैं. Any question? हाँ. There are many people for every site. Dayaram Sahni, R.D. Banerjee, etc., Harappa and Mohenjo-daro are important because they are given in NCERT. That is where the civilization itself was discovered. Although Cunningham had found some elements. Harappa, people knew Harappa beforehand. In 1850s, 1890s also, people knew Harappa, but they did not know it is a new civilization. They thought Mohenjo-daro का जो फोटो आपने देखेगा कभी, it has a Buddhist stupa in between. People thought it's a Buddhist site. पुराने कोई ईंटें पड़ी हैं. So when Multan train was being built, they took all these ईंटें, bricks and built. But 1920s में आके 1910 and 1920, during World War I, we have these two brilliant people going and excavating there and defining that it is a different civilization that we do not know earlier. Overnight, the history of India went back by thousands of years. Till that point, people used to think that Vedas are the oldest. Before Vedas, आपके पास पूरे शहर है. So R.D. Banerjee, Dayaram Sahni has a huge role to play. But ultimately, what happened is they submitted the reports to John Marshall in 1920. And he is the one who published the report in the Illustrated Weekly in London. John Marshall's name became important. Only recently, in the last 30-40 years, we are writing their names. But there are too many names. I have given one name over here for Dholavira, Jagatpati Joshi, because later on became the chief of ASI as well. DG bana tha wo, Director General of ASI. It is 1987. So we have R.S. Bisht, we have Amalnanda Ghosh, many people. Recently, one person who discovered Malhar city. Malhar is from Malhar place in UP. The site where they have found the oldest rice remnants. So न्यूरोलॉजी इलाके में बहुत important है वो. But how many people you will remember? No need for general studies at all. You can remember those names which are given in NCERT. James Prinsep was given in NCERT. VPC asked the question. Sir, can you tell the important topics for art and culture which we need to focus more? Yes, I can tell. Should I tell? As a people, some of you know already, but what I can tell you in short is the overall schema of art and culture. You people know. See, we have visual arts. Tell me. Visual arts. Then you have performing arts. And we have literary arts. Instead of visual arts, what do we have? Start with architecture first. Architecture, then sculpture, then you have painting. Okay? Inside architecture, what do you have? I will draw the schema of it entirely first and then tell you what is important, what is to be neglected. You have pillars. You have Hadappa cities, etc., but let us forget them for a moment here. Then we have stupas. Then rock cut architecture, caves. Stupa means stupa, vihara, mahavihara, sangharama, all those things. After rock cut, what do we have? Temples. Then you have mosques and tombs. That is Indo-Islamic architecture. I will write Indo-Islamic architecture. And then you have isolated things also, sometimes like Jantar Mantar, etc. So pillars, stupa, rock cut, temple, mosque, tombs, and isolated things. Now let us, all these have their own evolution. For example, if you go to temple, you have Nagar, Dravid, and Vesar. In Nagar, you have 7 or 8 important regions like Kalinga school, you have Maru Gurjar school, Gujarat Rajasthan style, you have Chandel school in Central India, you have hills, you have Bengali, hut shape, etc. So this is their scheme. In Dravid, you have from Mahabalipuram, that is Pallava school. In Pallava, you have 3 generations. You go to Chola era, then 2 more kings and their styles. Then you go to after Chola, what happened till Nayaka and Hampi. You have Vesar, Chalukya, pre-Chalukya, post-Chalukya, Badami, etc. All those things. Later Chalukya come, and then Kakatiya, Yadava, and Hoysalas, Elur, Chandakeshava, etc. All these things, and then ultimately this temple thing ends. So this is only part of temple, which is part of architecture. Likewise, sculpture, likewise painting. If you take painting, for example, in painting you have firstly these rock paintings from prehistoric times. Then you have murals, Ajanta, etc. Then you have miniatures in medieval times. In miniature, you have early miniatures, Jaina, Pothi, you have Mughal miniatures, and then you have other regions, Rajput painting, Pahadi painting, Central Indian painting, Dakhan painting, etc. So that is in painting. In performing arts, what do you get? You have dance, drama, music. In music, you have folk as well. In dance, you have martial arts as well. Along with that, it comes in couple only. Drama, you have other aspects for theatre. Behind that, you have Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra and his theory. In literature, you have religious literature, Vedas, Buddhist literature, etc. You have travelers. In travelogues, you have Greek travelogues like Megasthenes, etc. Earliest older foreign travelers. Then Buddhist people coming from China or Korea or Japan, like Yuan-sang, Fahian, Yijing or Itzing, Yoncho, etc. Mahuan, who come in 13th century. So that Eastern Asian people. Then you have Arabic and Persian people, right? Like Kitabul Hind, etc. Al-Biruni se leke Sara, and historic Tawarikhas in Mughal court and Sultanate. And then you have European travelers, and most important of them who came to either Hampi, Vijayanagara, or those who came in the court of Mughals. उनको पढ़ते हम. So literature में Sanskrit literature is very important. UPSC asks questions every year on Sanskrit literature, poetry, kavya, etc. So this is the overall scheme. Now what is important? So importance में what I can tell you is that if you look at the proportion of questions, I have been saying this quite often. Every year around 20 questions on an average will come in history, of which 10 will come from modern and 10 will come from ancient, medieval, art and culture combined. Average, 2-4 ऊपर नीचे हो सकता है, but I am taking average of last 10 years. In that 10 of ancient, medieval, art and culture combined, you have 1 or 2 questions for ancient specifically, which is not from art and culture. You have 1 or 2 questions from medieval specifically, it is not from art and culture. And you have almost 6 to 7 questions from art and culture. And this art and culture can be of ancient times, of medieval times, of any time. When I say purely medieval or ancient, I mean only political, social, economic, and not religion or architecture. Now come to this part. This was your question कि कैसे क्या important है. Here the first important thing and the most important thing is religion. You have to study religion very religiously. ठीक है, Vedic religion, Upanishadic, Buddhist, Jaina, Sufi, Bhakti, that is like crux of everything. If you don't study that, you cannot understand painting and all those things. क्योंकि उसका reflection है painting, music, dance, drama, architecture. You don't know Buddha tenet, how can you understand stupa? The question coming is analyze stupa. How the thoughts and philosophies affected monuments. So religion will give you major things. So religion will constitute almost 3 questions every year. I am just giving a rough proportion. Then you have second important thing is visual arts. And even visual arts you have architecture. उसमें से एक या दो सवाल आएंगे जनरली उसमें. And equal to that, so I will write point 2 again, is important literature. Here we will find 1 or 2 questions. So these things are gonna come every year. So if you want to prioritize your prelims preparation, what I would say, focus first on religion a lot, then architecture and literature. If you get time and if you have interest, if you want to do comprehensively, which you can't do anyway, but I'm just telling, so dance, drama, music, painting पढ़ लो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. ना भी पढ़ो, if you don't have time, do not compromise on religion, architecture and literature. That will take care of 70% of your requirement. Even if to the extent that you don't read ancient medieval, that is fine. First think these things. Then you can go for ancient medieval, not for the sake of understanding. Understanding comes from here first and then you will go here. So if you are writing prelim this year and you do not have time, only in that case I am telling. Otherwise, ideally you should read these things first and then go here. And then other dance, drama, music, etc. Science and tech, education, all those things. Is that fine? So in art and culture, many toppers have suggested to draw diagrams, figures. How should we inscribe it in our paper in the limited time? कोई दिक्कत नहीं बना. People draw temples and stupas, all those things. They draw schematics. They don't draw full diagrams. Schematic drawing is very easy, and they don't go for various nakshi and figurative, all those things. Very outlining thing. Only for temples and stupas. Largely, they don't draw कि भाई यक्ष की मूर्ति ऐसे थी, बुद्ध की मूर्ति ऐसे थी. No, these things are not done. Pillar, for Ashokan pillar can be shown very easily. You have pillar, you have abacus, inverted lotus, you have capital. Done. So this stupa, ऐसे करो कुछ कुछ हो गया. These figures are shown not to exhibit how beautiful they are. The purpose of drawing schematic is to give nomenclature in terms. I know this is anda, this is toran, this is medi, this is sopan. I want to show I know the terms and this is how the terms look like. This is pillar, this is abacus, this is lotus, this is capital. So to be able to write those names, you draw diagrams, not the other way around. So it is very easy. It is not required in every case. There is other type of diagram, that is maps. Maps you can use very profusely in your mains answer. If the question comes on Dholavira, simply draw map of India like this only. This is enough. इंडिया हो गया, डॉट दिखा दो लाइक धोलावीरा. यहाँ पे डॉट दिखा दो रामप्पा टेम्पल, प्रॉक्स. खत्म. हाउ मच टाइम डज इट टेक? 15 seconds, नॉट इवन दैट. ठीक है. तो ओनली 10 मिनट. डोंट वरी अबाउट एकदम फिगर, लाल पेन, नीला पेन, हरा पेन, वो सब नहीं करना है. Sir, please also mention sources to read culture. My friend Mrutyunjay, I do not have any good source, single source. What I would say is, first of all, if you have done the basic readings, then you should read new NCERTs very thoroughly. That is one thing for the terms and ideas. But even before that, you should be thorough with all the PYQs. And when I say previous year questions, I do not mean 2013 के बाद. I mean 1979 के बाद. From 1979 onwards till 2020, all PYQs are available for prelims online. Go there. History PYQs are always maybe modern or culture. Proportion keeps changing. Some questions might be outdated. That is fine. But as far as history is concerned, you should read all the PYQs. That is one thing. Mains के भी पुराने question देख लो. Then you start revising your NCERT, new NCERT, you come to know the changing pattern of questions, the requirement, what to remember, what not to remember. Firstly, understand that 30-40% questions are repeat questions, even in culture. इफ यू आर विलिंग टू गो बैक आज फार एज 1979, ताकत हो तो करो, बट आई वुड सजेस्ट स्ट्रांगली कि करो, प्रीलिम्स के बाद करो, मेंस के नहीं, ठीक है। एंड देन सेकंड इज न्यू एनसीईआरटी, थर्ड इज फॉर रिलीजन देयर इज नो गुड हिस्ट्री बुक। न्यू एनसीईआरटी एंशियंट मिडल के अलावा फाइन आर्ट्स की एनसीईआरटी है, and this year only a few months ago they released the second volume or the second level fine arts NCERT of 12th standard. So for people who studied only ancient की मतलब part 1 of 11th standard उसमें बस टेम्पल वगैरह था and painting था. Now part 2 has come which is about complete painting. So this year painting is all the more important because a few months ago they released new NCERT of fine arts of class 12 full of painting except last chapter which is about some crafts. So I would say that is the third source. Then remains this religion. For religion, there is no good source. If you are not giving prelims this time, or if you are okay with little bit of difficult English, then my favorite source is A.L. Basham. Go to A.L. Basham, Wonder That Was India, chapter of 40, 50 pages, 60 pages something on religion. You will read that. That is a fantastic chapter, one single point source. I will hold my hand and tell you, do not read which book? Within Singhania. Singhania is not as helpful as it was a few years ago. So there is no point in reading it. That is my personal suggestion. But you can, if you find other things are very onerous, you may end up going for Singhania, which is like shortcut. लिखा जाए क्वेश्चन फंसे तो फंसे वरना नहीं फंसे, वरना हम फंसे, ठीक है। Anyway, any other question? Murtyunjay, is that fine? स्पीकर कैसे ऑन करते हैं? अनम्यूट। हेलो, एनीवे आई डोंट नो। हाँ, तो आई थिंक क्वेश्चंस हो गए सारे। विल स्टॉप हियर। आपको बाद वाले टाइम बताया जाएगा जैसे भी हो, टू डू लेक्चर देन, ठीक है। थैंक यू।